All right. Good morning or hi, whenever you watch this. So I'm taking a break, and I 100% stole the work with your blanket on. This is such a hack. This is a cheat code. For all of you infodoms, I swear, this is so comfortable. I don't know why I haven't thought of this in the past 26 years, but anyway. So today I want to actually do a little bit of clarification while I'm on break. I think that my understanding of Blast Last in this info energy dom conversation is a little bit off. And what I mean by that is that in previous videos, namely the action requires identity video, and then maybe a few other ones after that, I kind of described Blast Last as not, not acting at all and just having this pay me energy, and not doing anything. And I think there's partial truth to that, but much like with the consume last video that I had to put out yesterday, I do think that there's a little bit more nuance and a little bit more clarification that I need to provide, because it's not quite that. Because if Blast Last didn't do anything, that would kind of contradict with them being energy doms, right? So I'm gonna try and do a round two, try and explain what I'm seeing now with energy doms that are Blast Last, and maybe what the actual life problem is, as opposed to that first guess that I put in that action requires identity video. So let's start off with some definition of terms, right? Fun, SI. So starting off, info versus energy is, so energy doms are anyone who have play and sleep in the top three animals, including people who have Blast Last, and they're defined as respecting the time and energy things take. And then, I might add this at a later point, but they ultimately are, they have certainty on their identity, and so they're comfortable enough with their identity or their role in the world so that they can just do things, right? They get things done because there's not that identity crisis that infodoms have, right? Now, there's a few things that kind of was pointed out to me. I've been reviewing some Q&As about energy doms just because I like this topic. And one thing I realized is Blast Last, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Blast Last's problem is not doing things. I thought it was, because I thought Blast was the doing animal, but that's not true. Blast is more of it's called an info animal, much like consume, because it's more about learning and sharing information. That's really what that's about, right? And so looking at this one, this Q&A called info versus energy dom, oh my God, the energy dom problem is actually having a hard time balancing learning and sharing information, which has nothing to do with doing things, right? And so that's where I was wrong initially. I think Blast Last do plenty. And in fact, I actually put out a video yesterday about, in business, Blast Last, the two Blast Lasts in my company are dominating in my group, right? In sales and business. So they're getting a lot done. So I don't think that the way I characterized them in previous videos is correct. Now, where I do think they're having a problem is sharing information, right? And more specifically, for Blast Last, especially if they're Savior DI, they're double activated DI, right? Meaning that there's a part of them that wants to just sit in their king throne, right? And say, look, you got to just entertain me. You got to entertain me, basically, right? It's an introverted, they're more introverted, meaning that they're going to their inner world and they're cauldroning if things don't go their way. And they're not actually doing what the extroverted version of DI would do, which is more like screaming in someone's face. This would be like consume, play, blast, screaming in someone's face saying, hey, pay attention to me. Both the any version of Blast Last, I would say even play, consume, sleep, because they're activated, double activated on the DI, they're gonna look more like this, right? Let me stop circling it. They were gonna look more like the king throne, just sitting back in their chair, doing the consume, saying please me or else. Okay. Now, in practice, what this means is that basically what Blast Last are doing is, I think a better analogy is so going back to the baker analogy that I used in the action requires identity video, right? Where I talked about how roles determine your behavior. If you were to come into a store, right? And let's say you were talking to a Blast Last. If you ask them who they are, they're not even going to speak, right? So before I thought it was they didn't do anything, but I don't think that's true. I think that the Blast Last, if you ask them who they are, they're not going to tell you. They're just going to do their job and not talk to you. So it's like, let's say they were the baker and they say they don't talk to you. I mean, you could get away with that because you're still doing your job. But let's say you were a cashier, that's going to require some communication to the tribe, right? But the Blast Last would be sitting there I'm sitting in front of the cashier, You know, if you want to talk to me and do your transaction, great, but I'm not going to tell you I'm a cashier, right? So it's more of the Blast Lasts keep their identity a secret from the tribe in a weird way. They don't communicate their stance on things. They don't communicate who they are. And so I think that the infodom tidal wave that would happen is actually not what I thought it would be. The infodom tidal wave is them sitting back and then the tribe coming at them saying, why didn't you tell us who you are, right? So it's more of a tribe tidal wave as well as a blast tidal wave, right? Saying, hey, why didn't you tell us you were this? We could have solved a lot more problems if you just told us, right? So really good examples is I want to say the Skyfall movie. I'm big into, not big into movies, but I like movies. If you guys are into James Bond, so James Bond is played by Daniel Craig, who is Blast Last, and Dave and Shan say in the Daniel Craig class that the James Bond that Daniel Craig plays is a Blast Last as well, right? And I totally believe that because especially in the movie Skyfall, I'm gonna show you a little picture here. His whole story arc in the movie is he disappears from the world. He gets shot, which kind of sucks. But he disappears from the world, and then he randomly reappears to help out. And then like what's her name? Q? No, not Q. Sorry, this lady M. So M. It's towards the first half of the movie where she's like not screaming at James Bond, but she's like annoyed at him. She's like, yo, why didn't you tell us you were still alive? Like, we're in huge trouble here in Britain. There's this ugly, or not ugly, but like there's this terrorist dude trying to kill all of us, and you're one of our best employees. You're one of our best secret agents. Why didn't you communicate to us that you're alive? Why didn't you communicate to us like your identity still is a thing, right? And he's like, no, I didn't feel like it. I felt like having sex with some random cute girl and, you know, partying with scorpions. And, you know, I came back when I felt like it. And isn't that enough? And she's like, yo, you're dumb. Now, fortunately, they have like a long-standing relationship, so he could get away with that shit. But then later in the movie, and again, this is a fictional example, but I love this movie. Later in the movie, he doesn't communicate his identity as a weak soldier, right? Because his fear is, well, if I communicate that, I'm going to lose my importance, I'm going to lose my identity, which he would have. But like, there's a really poignant scene where he's basically getting retrained, right? Or he's retested to see if he's ready for duty on the, what do you call that thing? On boots on the ground, whatever they call that, like ready to be a field operative, basically. And he's basically putting on this show of, yeah, I'm still fit, I can still shoot, and he's failing all the tests and he doesn't know it, but he's keeping it a secret. And there's one scene where someone's trying to talk to him and he's trying to James Bond is putting on this front. And then basically the moment the guy who was talking to him walks out, he collapses out of exhaustion and like, you know, almost, I don't know, fear necessarily, but definitely out of exhaustion. And I'm watching that. I remember watching this movie a few times and I'm like, how are you getting away with not telling anyone that you're like hurt like this? But I think that is the Blast Last thing. They don't want to tell you where they stand in their identity, whether good or bad, right? Because the tribe is annoying and who fucking wants to talk to them, and they should just figure it out because I clearly am doing all the things right. So, you know, I shouldn't have to tell you who I am, right? But no, like, so I think this is a very good movie to show you what Blast Last looks like. I think in the real world, Blast Last, it's not like they're stuck in doing things. I think that's where, I know Shan talks about that, where they struggle to get started. And I think, yes, there's some element to that. But it's more like, the Blast Last is the person who's been like suffering for months, and then they finally half-heartedly mention it in a conversation to you, and you're like, yo, you could have told me this a month ago and I could have helped you out. But they don't want help. They want to do everything themselves. They want to keep this identity a secret, and you know, it's not my problem if you don't figure me out, and fuck you. And then later they're suffering and for no reason, right? They just suffer for no reason. So that's kind of what I would say. Blast Last is like the secret identity, whereas Consume Last in the Energy Dom is like the mistaken identity, right? They assume that they know, right? So whereas Consume Lasts assume they know what's going on and that they do all the wrong shit, Blast Last are probably doing all the right things, right? But they're hiding their identity from the tribe because the tribe is too annoying to talk to, basically. And then they get in trouble because, like I said, the problem with not blasting is that you don't get the information you need back, right? It's an info animal. So it's like, if you don't blast and tell people something's wrong, no one's gonna know that something's wrong, and then you just suffered for 5 months, 6 months for no reason, right? That's how dumb you guys are. So that's my TE. That's my little rant. You know, I think I saw a comment saying you can't say Ti is dumb. All right, I'll fair point. It looks silly to me. I don't know what nice word to say here, but anyway, that's where I would summarize it. I do want to clarify that I do think I was mistaken initially with Blast Last, but I mean, the problem is just as bad, right? You need to communicate what's going on with you, and you need to communicate who you are to the tribe so that not only do you get what you need, the tribe knows what to expect from you, right? So they're not expecting something off, right? That's probably the easiest way to preserve energy anyway, right? Just tell them what you are, and they won't bother you with anything else, right? Anyway, that's my little rant, little spiel. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to continue going down this rabbit hole of info versus energy dominant because I really like it. And if you guys have any hacks, like blankets while working, just send me that shit. This is a hack. I vibe with this, okay? Anyway, let me get back to work. I've taken a little bit too long, but hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.